It's Saturday, February 5th, and this morning I want to talk about the raid that the United States pulled off that killed the Islamic State leader Abu Ibrahim al-Hashimi al-Quarashi. This operation was carried out in Syria. It's an attempt to stop the potential resurgence of the terrorist group ISIS, and it reflects the ongoing nature of the U.S. involvement in military operations overseas. Even after President Biden pulled American forces out of Afghanistan, we are still involved in Syria and what's going on in that part of the world. And it's not a happy situation. It's not a good situation. Because no matter what we've been doing over these past couple of years, ISIS is still on the rise. And so there are some things that we have to understand, and I'll try to tell you what I found out, Al-Hashimi al-Quarashi was the current leader, but he took over after the head of ISIS in 2019 was killed in a similar event. And that guy was Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. And he was really a behind-the-scenes guy. Nobody really knew much about him, but we understood what he was about, and we killed him. Now, there's not much that we know about this guy either. He was born in Iraq, and he's 45 years old, and he never left the house that he was killed in. And not only was he killed, but his entire family was killed too. And that was because he wouldn't let them escape, because his predecessor had done the same thing. And the U.S. State Department listed al-Quarashi as a specially designated global terrorist in early 2020 after he was named the new ISIS leader, and the U.S. had a $10 million reward for information leading to his capture. But Biden said on Thursday that al-Quarashi oversaw the spread of the ISIS-affiliated terrorist groups around the world, savaging communities and murdering innocents. Now, this killing took place at a raid. It was a raid instead of a drone strike. And it was a raid in order to avoid excessive casualties in the residential home where al-Quarashi lived. And apparently he never left that house. Biden was sitting in the White House getting updates in real time in the Situation Room, commented that the U.S. military chose to conduct a raid over an airstrike to minimize civilian casualties. So that was a very good thing. We didn't want to kill a lot of innocent people. Although I don't know how many innocent people lived in that area. Meanwhile, that didn't help his family because he chose to have his family, including his children, around him. And we tried to avoid taking those people out, but it didn't help. Killed them anyhow. The whole white helmets. Just a Syrian civil defense group reported that at least 13 bodies were found, including 6 children, all women. But then some senior officials said that the death tolls were not accurate. Anyhow, al-Quarashi was dead. And he detonated the bomb that killed himself, and as well as members of his family, rather than wait for our troops to get to him, I guess. And if you saw pictures of the building, most of the top floor of the residence where he was hiding was destroyed. And, one of his guards, an ISIS lieutenant, also barricaded himself on the second floor of the house. He was actually fighting the U.S. forces, and he and his wife were killed in the raid. And no U.S. forces died in the raid. But this leads us to the admission in my mind that we really have no control over that region of the world. That ISIS and the Taliban and al-Qaeda going to exist no matter what we attempt to do. So I don't know what we really should do going forward. Are we going to continue to have raids, places like Syria and Iraq, just to keep killing these leaders off? Isn't that the responsibility of those governments? We, the police force of the entire world, we have to be the ones, the United States, do we have to be the ones that seek out and destroy these villains? Because in many parts of the world, these people are not necessarily considered villains. In fact, one of the major problems that we have are these detention centers, where in countries like Iraq and Syria, we have rounded up, not so much in Iraq, but in Syria, we have rounded up to over 40,000 people to keep them in detention center because family members are members of ISIS or the Taliban or Al-Qaeda or something like that. And so we're spending millions, not we, the U.S. is not really spending this money, but those countries where these detention centers are spending millions of dollars to keep these people penned up. And these people are not necessarily terrorists. They just are the family members of terrorists or associated with terrorists. And some of them may really be ISIS. But keeping them penned up in these detention centers costs a fortune. And it diverts resources from activities that we'd better off taking out and done, It's crazy. We have all these people locked up. So it's a situation that I see no viable end to. Because in my mind, as long as you have governments like Iraq and Iran and the United Arab Emirates and all, even the good Arabian governments are not so good. So as long as we have governments like that, and how, people are living there under severe pressure, all kinds of conditions that we would consider grossly totalitarian. It's like having a whole country in a prison camp in mind. It's a terrible situation. I don't know if it can end, and I don't know if we can keep our nose out of it. But meanwhile, killed somebody, deserves to be killed. Al-Quarashi was responsible for millions, thousands of civilian deaths. Got him, just like we got Bin Laden. And I'll leave you with that this morning. See you tomorrow. Bye.